Hey, Econ Warriors. Welcome back to Boss Economics World, where we peel back the shiny veneer of government spin and expose the economic dumpster fire underneath. I'm your no-nonsense host, ready to roast the Fed, the White House, and anyone else screwing up your wallet. Buckle up, because today, we're diving headfirst into Jerome Powell's latest word salad at the Economic Club of Chicago. Spoiler alert, it's a masterclass in dodging accountability while the U.S. economy teeters on the edge of stagflation. Let's go. Oh, Jerome Powell, the man with the unenviable task of steering the U.S. economy through a minefield of bad policy while pretending everything's just peachy. On April 16, 2025, Powell took to the stage at the Economic Club of Chicago to deliver yet another sermon on the Fed's sacred, dual mandate, maximum employment and price stability. But let's cut through the jargon. What Powell really said was, folks, we're terrified of Trump's tariffs, but we're gonna sit on our hands and pray inflation doesn't spiral out of control. Powell's big soundbite. The Fed must make certain that tariff-driven price hikes don't metastasize into long-term inflation. Make certain? Are you kidding me, Jerome? As economist Derek Tang pointed out, certainty is a bar so high, even Superman couldn't leap over it. This isn't a central banker being cautious, this is a central banker admitting he's powerless against the chaos unleashed by the White House's trade war roulette. And guess what, folks? You and I are the ones paying the price, literally. Let's start with the elephant in the room, tariffs. Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed tariff man, has been playing economic whack-a-mole with global trade, slapping duties left, right, and center. A 10% global tariff, 100% plus tariffs on China, and targeted levies on autos, steel, aluminum, and maybe even your next iPhone or prescription drugs. It's a policy smorgasbord of chaos, and the markets are rightfully freaking out. Just look at the volatility. After Trump flip-flopped on his reciprocal tariffs plan on April 2, 2025, the S&P 500 tanked 3% in a single day, only to rebound when he backtracked. This isn't leadership, it's economic whiplash. Now, here's the kicker, tariffs are inflationary by design. When you jack up the cost of imports, businesses pass those costs on to consumers. Powell himself admitted that the tariff hikes are significantly larger than anticipated and highly likely to spike inflation. The Fed's preferred inflation gauge, the Personal Consumption Expenditures, PCE, index, was already at 2.5% in February 2025, above the Fed's 2% target, and Powell's own estimates peg it at 2.3% for March. But let's not kid ourselves, with tariffs this aggressive, we're not talking about a temporary price blip. We're talking about a structural inflation problem that could haunt us for years. Need proof? Look at history. When Trump imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum in 2018, U.S. steel prices soared by 40%, and downstream industries like auto manufacturing saw cost increases of up to 10%. Fast forward to 2025, and Goldman Sachs estimates that Trump's latest tariff package could add 0.5 to 1 percentage point to core inflation by the end of the year. That's not a one-time price increase, Jerome, that's a recipe for stagflation, where prices rise even as growth stalls. So, what's the Fed doing about this mess? Spoiler alert, nothing. Powell's speech was a masterclass in inaction, cloaked in fancy phrases like, well-positioned to wait for greater clarity. Translation. We're scared stiff of making the wrong move, so we're just gonna sit here and hope the problem fixes itself. This isn't leadership, it's cowardice. The Fed cut rates 3 times in late 2024 to juice the economy, but now, with inflation sticky and tariffs looming, they've gone full deer in the headlights. Powell even admitted that the Fed's dual mandate, employment and price stability, could soon be in tension. Gee, you think? When you've got unemployment at 4.2%, still low, but ticking up, and inflation stubbornly above target, you're not balancing a dual mandate, you're juggling flaming torches on a tightrope over a pit of alligators. And here's the real scandal, the Fed's obsession with longer-term inflation expectations is blinding them to the immediate pain Americans are feeling. Powell keeps yammering on about keeping expectations well anchored, but guess what? Expectations don't pay your grocery bill. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Consumer Price Index, CPI, for food rose 4.1% year-over-year in March 2025, while energy prices jumped 5.3%. Meanwhile, wages? Real average hourly earnings, adjusted for inflation, fell 0.2% over the same period. So, while Powell's busy playing 4D chess with inflation expectations, regular folks are getting crushed. Now, let's talk about the labor market, because Powell and the Fed love to pat themselves on the back for keeping unemployment low. At 4.2% in March 2025, it's true that we're not in a full-blown jobs crisis. Employers even added 228,000 jobs in February, beating forecasts. But here's the dirty little secret, low unemployment doesn't mean the labor market is healthy. For starters, labor force participation is still below pre-COVID levels, sitting at 62.7% in March 2025, down from 63.4% in February 2020. That means millions of workers have simply given up looking for jobs, and they're not counted in the unemployment rate. Meanwhile, the quality of jobs being created is tanking. According to the Economic Policy Institute, 60% of the jobs added in 2024 and early 2025 were in low-wage sectors like retail and hospitality, where median hourly wages are barely keeping pace with inflation. And let's not forget the gig economy, which the government conveniently sweeps under the rug. A 2025 report from the Pew Research Center found that 16% of U.S. adults now rely on gig work as their primary income source, up from 10% in 2020. These workers have zero job security, no benefits, and are disproportionately affected by rising costs. So, Jerome, spare us the victory lap on employment. Your strong labor market conditions are a mirage hiding a world of pain. Oh, and let's not forget Powell's hot take on the financial markets. Markets are functioning just about as you would expect them to function. Really, Jerome? Because to me, it looks like markets are having a nervous breakdown. The VIX, Wall Street's fear gauge, spiked to 25 in early April 2025, its highest level since the COVID crash, thanks to Trump's tariff flip-flops. U.S. stocks tanked after Powell's speech, and 10-year Treasury yields dipped as investors fled to safety. Powell's claim that markets are orderly is the kind of gaslighting that would make a politician blush. Orderly markets don't see 3 intraday swings of 500 points on the Dow in a single. Orderly markets don't see corporate bond spreads widen by 50 basis points in a month, as they did in March 2025, signaling rising default risks. And orderly markets sure as heck don't see foreign investors dump $30 billion in U.S. Treasuries in Q1 2025, as reported by the Treasury Department, out of fear that tariffs will tank U.S. growth. Here's the truth, markets are a mess because government policy is a mess. Trump's tariffs are creating uncertainty, the Fed's inaction is amplifying it, and the result is a volatility cocktail that's poisoning investor confidence. Now, let's zoom out and connect the dots, because this isn't just about Powell or the Fed, it's about a government that's failing us at every level. Trump's tariffs are a reckless gamble, designed more for political theater than economic strategy. The White House claims they'll protect American jobs, but a 2025 study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics found that Trump's previous tariffs, 2018 to 2020, cost the U.S. economy 142,000 jobs while raising consumer prices by $50 billion annually. This time around, the damage could be even worse. Meanwhile, the Fed is complicit in this disaster. By refusing to act decisively, either by raising rates to curb inflation or cutting them to boost growth, Powell is letting the economy drift towards stagflation. And Congress? Don't even get me started. With the national debt at $34 trillion, 123% of GDP, per the Congressional Budget Office, and no serious plan to address it, lawmakers are too busy grandstanding to tackle the structural issues, like crumbling infrastructure or a tax code that favors billionaires, driving inequality and economic fragility. Here's the brutal truth, folks. The U.S. economy is on a collision course with recession, and the government's mismanagement is to blame. Tariffs are fueling inflation, the Fed's paralysis is killing growth, and the labor market's strength is a house of cards. The IMF's latest World Economic Outlook, April 2025, slashed its U.S. growth forecast to 1.5% for 2025, down from 2.7% in 2024, citing trade tensions and monetary policy uncertainty. And if inflation keeps climbing, Bank of America predicts a 3% PCE rate by year-end. Powell might have no choice but to slam on the rate hike brakes, tipping us into a full-blown downturn. So, what can you do? Well, don't count on the government to save you. Start by protecting your wallet, lock in fixed-rate debt before rates rise, diversify your investments away from tariff-exposed sectors, and build an emergency fund, because the storm is coming. And hey, maybe it's time to tell your elected officials to stop treating the economy like their personal playground. That's all for today, Econ Warriors. If you're as fed up as I am, smash that like button, share this video, and let's keep shining a light on the clowns running this circus. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, in this economy, you're the boss. Peace out.